going to be your host today. We were always going to be your host. But now, this is going to turn into a revenue model slash CPQ slash usage slash consumption AMA.
So please do jump in there with questions in the comments and Q&A. We'll start with some trauma shares, and then I'll ask James some questions about how these things could have been avoided. And I'm also curious from the audience, like how many have you been just told that we're switching to consumption-based or some kind of value-based or something along those lines after a big board meeting, or after you suspect your CEO has been reading Forbes? I don't think I'm the only one who's had that happen. And that's like, I'm older, so I've been in the RevOps game for a long time. So when usage-based started being a thing, that was the first thing that our CEO would come out of a board meeting and be like, we have to do usage-based. And even when we pointed out we don't track usage, we still had to figure out a way to make it work. And I feel like this is the birthplace of many of these pricing models. James, do you see this often? And how can we maybe get in front of it?
So there are kind of two lanes of thought when it comes to usage and how we end up there, which is someone reads an article about how it can improve your revenue retention. It's charging your customers who actually use the product for how much they use the product. There's also the folks who have this subscription model and they're not sure that it's going in the right direction for them. They're like, they say, okay, I want to make sure that I'm capturing as much revenue as possible, or I have this experimental feature I don't know if anyone's actually going to use, but I want to monetize it. We talked to a lot of customers who have usage, but actually don't rate it. They just charge an amount and they're like, this is the usage you purchased, with no rating engine behind it. And the challenge is that controlling, like in the control what you can control RevOps sphere of our world, it's really hard to kind of transition your customers between those three paradigms where, to your point, your leader reads an article, all of a sudden you need to roll out usage pricing. How are you rating it? How are you metering it? Like, what is your product DB connecting into? And that means you need to bring in engineers, which that's always a fast trip. It's a never-ending cycle that just ends in sadness, sadly, for most companies, because when you're trying to implement CPQ or usage pricing, you need to account for, do people actually care about this thing? Do they use it? What is their definition of success? How am I going to communicate to them that their billing model has completely changed overnight and they are now going to be billed for all of this as they use it? It's not a subscription anymore. It's an as you use it perspective. And then also, how am I going to communicate with them when Tim from accounting runs 18 SQL queries and all of a sudden I've got a bill of $10,000 for month one when it was supposed to be $200?
Yeah, and I wasn't warned about it ahead of time. So how happy am I going to be that just happened? And you touched on engineers briefly. I've been doing some research. We did a really big survey, and I was astounded at how few revenue operators are doing product usage analysis and incorporating that into their systems. Why do you think that is? Is it owned by another department? Like, why, or are we just not prioritizing it appropriately? Because the key to usage-based pricing is understanding usage, right?
Yeah, but unfortunately, a well-structured product DB rarely lends itself to capturing every single time someone does a thing. Like, when you're building out a product, you're thinking about UI, UX. What happens when a customer does X? What happens when a customer does Y? Now, to truly rate and meter your customers and what they're actually doing, you need to think through their use case scenarios. You need to take the other side, the other view. And that just never comes into play when you're thinking about, okay, how do I build the best product possible? You're not thinking about, okay, what's the most monetizable point in this product? Okay, I need to know every single time someone does that. I need to know who did it, when they did it, like how they did it, And it's not something that comes into products view. And also, for what it's worth, I have been in probably 3 different companies where product and revenue actually spoke together.
Let's say you're in the scenario where the CEO, and Alan, I saw your comment. I totally agree. We'll get to that in a minute. But let's say you're at a company, the CEO says, I'm the decider. We're going to do usage-based pricing. One of the things I see blow up so much is the lack of change management and preparation around customer-facing messaging that this change is coming. What have you seen people do to help mitigate that before we start talking about the technical aspects of implementing usage-based or even
Yeah, so
consumption-based, which in my mind are kind of similar?
it's kind of how no action movie would actually happen if everyone just spoke to each other at the
Mm.
beginning.
Or Harry Potter if they talk to an
Yeah,
adult.
exactly. Exactly. If you just weren't running around holding all the information all the time and you actually communicate with someone, someone could help. So, what works is communicating early and often. It's, hey, we're transitioning your subscription. This isn't happening right now. It's going to happen over the next 6 months. We will update you as changes occur.
But actually do the updates, please. Please.
Right.
That's the other place where things fall
Th-
down a lot.
3 months before release, roll out usage, but just show them a dashboard of
Yes.
how they're actually using the product. Don't charge them for it right away. Just show them how much they're using the product. Then have your AE reach out and be like, hey, you're using a product 10,000 times a month. That's going to be $500 in usage a month, or that's going to be $5,000 in usage a month. And say, let's work on getting that together. And then the negotiations can begin. And you can actually start up front with your customers truly understanding A, what they're going to be charged, and B, like what goes into it. Make sure you have the documentation available of all of the aspects of usage you're going to be charging for the moment you announce it. Make sure don't let the rumor mill go around of like, oh, they're going to be charging percent of revenue when you're actually going to be charging for API calls. Be communicative with your customers, be communicative with your prospects. Nobody likes surprises. And by nobody, I mean every single finance person who ever existed. If I went to our CFO with a surprise $5,000 bill, I might get murdered. Not saying Brian's necessarily going to murder me overtly, but it's possible. So the idea is communicate early and often, communicate as much as you can, and make sure you're building predictability into what you're doing so that over the course of time, your customers 100% know what they're going to end up paying and also how they're going to end up being charged, which is it because every time their reps log in, is that something they can remove via permission set? Is it going to be every time when somebody downloads a file? Can they and understand that at the same time work with your engineering teams?
And I really like your point of rolling out the dashboard at least 3 months in advance, because hopefully that means that you do have the analytics capabilities somewhere that maybe isn't UI pretty. So it will make understanding where this is heading for key customers a little bit easier and your ability to forecast a little bit easier. But Alan's question, are you finding that usage-based billing can be a big issue for pricing, bundling, and forecasting due to the unpredictable aspect of usage? I think this helps explain it a little bit, but if you could build on that.
Yeah, 100%. It's when you're billing out usage, surprises are what kill you. I don't know if anyone here has an AWS account. Like all of a sudden you install an application into your AWS account. Oh, well, that took my entire monthly usage out. That's $1,000. And
Uh-huh.
all of a sudden you end up spending a lot more than you meant to in a given place. The surprises are what kill your ability to do usage based
left something running in the back end, and I used to work in storage for years, and we did usage-based billing, and the number of times our customers were shocked by somebody forgetting to turn something off or integrating without talking to the rest of the team.
Yeah, we had a customer who, this is our version of it. We had a customer who decided to query their 512,000 records every 25 milliseconds. And that's because, yeah, 500 every 25 milliseconds. What do you think that did to our AWS bill? It went through the roof.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is you never know when those things are going to happen. But as a business looking to invoice someone for it or bill someone for it, again, communication is key. And so having a system where what your reps quote can actually be positioned as the right as the usage billing, and then you have an upfront rating and metering system that shows the customer exactly what they're going to be billed upfront. Having more ability to communicate with your customers is significantly better than the other way.
And the biggest question I always think about is how do sales forecast for usage from the quote or opportunity, and how to compensate on usage. I know salespeople in the survey we did stress out a lot about how to predict this. What are 2 or 3 models or principles you recommend for dealing with the forecasting and compensation conundrum?
So we've already talked about one of them. And I remember I was talking to someone over at Twilio a couple years ago, and it's like there are lots of different ways to think about compensation when it comes to usage because upfront is not gonna play, right? So if you sell committed usage, i.e., you know exactly how much that person's going to rate over the year, give them an upfront on committed, what they commit the user to, and then give them a bonus on additional. So ensuring success for that user. If you're doing pure usage based, then come up with a rubric for net new for a customer, i.e., customers of 1,000 employees tend to use the product this much over a
Or
given
with a
period of
specific
time.
use or
Yeah,
use case base, whatever is correlated to usage.
exactly. And then do that as an upfront. On renewals, expansions, that sort of thing, you have a much easier story, which is let's look at their historical, let's look at what you can commit them to or what they're open to doing, what you've negotiated as a rate going forward. And then that you can comp them based on that. Note that anything you do forward looking, however, is going to end up with you're going to have to do pullbacks. You're going to have to pull back commissions at one point or another on a rep. So come up with a strategy for dealing with that. One of the hardest parts about doing a usage or a consumption based model is actually looking forward. Nobody's ever been able to predict anyone's usage accurately. So coming up with that rubric over what you think someone's going to actually do and then giving them a bonus based on what the customer going above and beyond over the course of the year. Like your reps are not going to be super pumped if you're going from a subscription model to a usage model. The best way to do it is by having some sort use case or genre or ICP based rubric, predict it out, and then constantly evaluate. Like constantly for the first 6 months after you roll this out, I'm saying like once a week, you get together, go, okay, what did we see this week? What worked? What didn't? How are we doing it? And adjust your models to better compensate the predicted for any net new deals that come up after that.
And if you think about it, we're already pretty comfortable with ambiguity and we just don't know it. So sales forecasting is based on predicting buyer behavior. And we've used machine learning and methodologies over time to get better at that. We're basically doing the same thing with usage based. It's just called something different and it seems more intimidating. How would you distinguish usage based versus consumption based? How do you differentiate between the two?
So usage based is how much someone's using the product. It's pay as you go. For every time this user does this, we're going to charge 5 cents per. Consumption is this person has
Credits.
pre-purchased $10,000 worth of credits.
Mm-hmm.
At 5 cents per API call, 10 cents per storage unit, we're going to be X, it's going to take them X long to draw it down. And consumption is both committed usage with the pull down, leading into an overage model, or it is credit or cash based drawdowns across multiple products. And so that requires a system that can manage cash and credit pools, which are, for those that don't know, a credit pool is like what you get with Clay, where you go in, they give you 10,000 credits in a month. Every single action you take takes 2 credits, takes 5 credits, whatever it is. That's a classic credit burn down model. Cash burn down is Starbucks. You go, you put $25 onto your Starbucks card. Every time you go in, you get your $5, $6 drink.
Days later for some of us.
Yeah. And the next day, you need to buy reload your credit, your cash pool. But
Yeah.
those are the classic consumption models that we deal with. Generally, cash burn down for most businesses is going to be the simplest model because, again, it's dollars to dollars. If you're in a situation, though, where you do have that kind of clay-based credit model, you're going to want to go with that credit burn down.
So Chris wonders if everyone views the terms the same as was outlined. Probably not. Like every business has their own thing, but what James is saying is what I'm hearing most consistently. Alan had a couple interesting comments. The first one I want to throw out there is so as it pertains to compensation with usage based, wouldn't it be better to provide a partial comp than do pullbacks? I don't know any sales reps who would know how to manage the other.
Absolutely. I 100% value or love comp plans that have an upfront portion when you're talking about usage or consumption, have the upfront portion as the primary vehicle, and then almost like a bonus structure where 20 or 30% is the second piece, and then give them like a 20 or 30% team, like three buckets they can roll into. One goes now. That one you never will, like, you don't pull back on that ever because it's the upfront commit unless someone churns like a week later. The second one is as someone uses the product, so you're never going to have to draw that back. And the third is pure team performance based, incentivizing everyone to work together and nobody to go out and do lone wolf.
So there's a comment. I'd love to do just a tiny rant to pair with this one, but the assumption is AI will take us to outcome based, but there are so many issues which need to be squared. So usage will be the primary for a while. I will say in the surveys we've done, we've found that subscription is still very much the leading model used by SaaS businesses. I think it's like 75% plus still use that. The rest, I think 11% use usage, and then there's a combination of usage and subscription out there. So subscriptions still, whether it's because of system shortcomings or just the type of product they have, I see that the most. Outcome based, what are some of the big hurdles? And I have a rant I'm holding back for you, James, but what are some of the big hurdles to getting to a place where we can reliably do outcome based pricing?
The biggest hurdles for outcome based pricing are trust. Does your customer trust that the outcomes you're saying you're delivering, you're actually delivering? Outcome based pricing means you have a window into what your customer has achieved using the product. You both agree on the definition that that is an achievement. And then finally, pulling all the way back, you have a way of actively measuring that doesn't require a two-way conversation at the end of the month. It's like when we think about return on ad spend for Google back in the day, they required extremely specific criteria to be met before you could even turn it on.
Well, and then they got in trouble for spoofing the numbers. So there's that.
Yeah.
I get so angry about this because I was around when proof of concept was really standard in the software industry, and even when people were still selling hardware. And the biggest issue we had is that success was always this moving target that the customer, it was so subjective. Even if you had, we're going to meet this, this, and this, if they didn't feel a certain way about it, somehow that finish line would move around every
Yeah.
time. And I don't see how that's going to be different for outcome based, particularly if you're trying to tie it to their revenue. Like, how are
Yeah.
you going to get access to that? Unless you're like an e-commerce doing transactions for them, then maybe.
100%. It's like we've all seen, we've all worked with a CFO who didn't like paying expenses out. Now imagine trying to negotiate an outcome based bill with them as a SaaS provider, where you're sitting there and you're going, hey, we did this. And they go, I didn't see it. What are you talking about? And you end up having to renegotiate every single invoice that goes out the door. And it just ends up being you're putting yourself into a pit of despair and horror for nobody's benefit, but maybe your own, but you're
You're
also going to
choosing
end
the
up,
ocean.
yeah, you're actually opening yourselves up to negotiating every single invoice you send out.
Yeah, exactly. So Vivian asked, subscription equals to monthly flat charge? Not necessarily. So
No.
subscription could be annual, quarterly, monthly, but typically it's like a platform fee or some kind of predictable charge. Think of Marketo. They kind of have like a subscription plus consumption where you look at volume of contact base and then you expect a 7% surcharge to be negotiated on renewal.
Because you had mentioned, or there was a question earlier, I don't remember where it came up, but why someone would go with subscription versus usage based. And this feeds into the definition of subscription, which is in this business, is the reason why predictable revenue was so freaking exciting for everyone back in the day. Having predictable bills every single month go out to your clients is like critically important. And so when you're transitioning to usage, you are putting 100% of your revenue at risk. Quite literally, if you roll out an 100% usage based model and nobody uses your product, you've just lost all of your revenue. Now, if you have a subscription based business, obviously you're charging them X platform fee plus X number of users per month. It's basically you're predicting, you're guaranteeing that revenue on a monthly basis to a certain extent. Subscription based businesses, we've seen people going from usage to subscription again because they overestimated how much people would be willing to pay for usage of the product. So to actually choose usage, make sure your product is sticky. Like a capital S. Like people need to love your product. They need to feel it when it's not there. And so for anyone thinking about a usage based model, recognize that the fact that subscription is 100% predictable. It's giving you the same thing every single month or every single quarter or every single year or every single week or however you actually charge, which don't send weekly invoices. Nobody likes that. But it's the usage, you're putting yourself up at risk.
And then I think that answers Chris's question, which is the combo subscription, use it or lose it usage. I think the big struggle or risk with that is that people won't consume the use it or lose it, and you're just pushing credits down the line. And
And
also measurement is the big challenge too. Are you adequately measuring whether or not they're using it, and how do you structure your burn down calculations for whether or not they lose it? So there's kind of two places for risk that I see there. I do want to get to a question. What are the common pitfalls that you're seeing with companies with legacy systems implementing these new revenue models that require more flexibility? And how would you define a legacy system? Steel brick?
steel brick.
Yeah.
Steel brick is a legacy system. So in today's world, it's any system largely that was built before headless applications really became a thing. It's anyone that was built on the paradigm of you're calling up and selling one thing once at a time. When we talk about legacy systems, It's anything that's inflexible, anything that's built on the idea of a salesperson picking up the phone and dialing for dollars. Anytime that exists and that feeds through to your billing platform, you're looking at a legacy system. For for us, the way we define it, a modern system is one that includes flexibility to include multiple different pricing models, all of those things across the board. And what we're seeing is that a lot of customers have come in and they're like, yeah, we've had subscription going to the consumption subscription, use it or lose it scenario. We have a lot of people that are like, yeah, we've been saying we're an included 5,000 of whatever for years in our thing, but we haven't been charging for it. And
Mhm.
there are people that are doing a subscription, but including 5,000 API credits that they're not actually metering. Nobody knows where they are. And so thinking about modern or legacy systems, a legacy system is the one that makes your reps want to go and pull up an Excel document to figure out what they're actually charging, what they're actually going to be quoting out for someone, or your finance team to go, I can't trace this back to the quote, or something like that. So there are lots of them out there.
I already said one of them.
Yeah. Well, Steelbrick's an easy one.
Yeah, they're, yeah, it's one
Yeah.
of those purchased and ignored.
Has been turned off.
Vivian asks, what is the most practical compensation structure? Base plus tier SIP plus accelerator, or what is your observation?
Most common is, yeah, it's base plus incentive plus team. Like generally it's in a usage world, it is committed, payout committed upfront, plus usage incentive, and then plus whatever the organizational KPI goal is. For most sales teams, though, it's literally just go out, make revenue, don't bother us. So those two buckets are the primary. But I like to see more of a team goal on top of that because everyone's better when they play together.
Okay, so we've already heard how I feel about this, but your thoughts, please.
I also don't like it, which is you sign a deal with your customer. The only reason to do rollover is if you're consistently wrong about what committed actually means or how much they're actually going to use the product. Do rollover and then peel that back for new customers as soon as you have a solid baseline for understanding what people are actually going to do. Because, yeah, it creates a liability for that usage. And so you're going to have to every single time go back and be like, okay, nobody wants to have that conversation. You don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person. So just make it easy for your customers up front. And then as they go, peel it back.
Okay, would love to hear any advice on charging pass-through usage for cloud infrastructure costs. What's the best practice there?
What we're seeing, I have never actually had to do that. So full disclosure, this is a what we're seeing conversation. But if you're doing cost pass through, then it's cost plus model, cost plus 5, cost plus 10, whatever you actually have. Get your administrative on there and then pass it through as is. You can do a once a month pull where you're saying, all right, on the 31st or 30th, we're going to upload all of this, all the pass throughs, and we're going to invoice them on the first. You can do it that model. If you can establish something for an ongoing feed into whatever your metering system is and whatever your rating system is, then you can get more tactical with it. But it's honestly with all pass throughs, I just do cost plus, and it's quite literally anytime ask finance.
So tricky part for estimating infrastructure usage is that one would have to collect customers' usage data.
Yes.
You have to track it.
You have to track it through your product. If you can't track it through your product, you can't charge usage because you're putting yourself in a horrific situation of trust your
To be an
customers, but
argument
you
all the
have
time.
to. What if you see a customer is being really successful and they come back and they send you 50% of the usage you expected them to? Like nobody wants that. So when it comes to getting the usage. If you can't track it inside your product DB, you can't bill for it, or should. I'm not going to say can't. You absolutely can. Go ahead, live your wild dreams. Go do you, but I wouldn't.
Please keep your questions coming. I'm monitoring chat and Q&A. James, have you seen anyone implement outcome-based pricing in a way that made sense to you yet?
I think unless you are a platform that, unless to your point, you are capturing the outcomes that someone wants, where if you're charging percent of revenue and you're a system that can track someone's revenue, like that's an outcome we can all agree on because revenue is revenue. But
If you're a CRM too, maybe. I know HubSpot can see all the things, so
well,
why
they
not?
kind of do, because it's like theirs is the contact email that you get that's like, congratulations, you've been upgraded to our next tier of subscription because now you've reached 80,000 contacts. It's like, I didn't mean to. Did somebody just do something in Clay? Like, but yeah, there are a lot of successful examples out there of outcome-based pricing, but it's quite literally when the outcome is baked into the system that's charging for it. You can't look at external pieces and go, okay, this is what we're gonna charge our outcomes on. Again, if you can't track it, you can't bill it, or you shouldn't bill
Until they were exposed.
it. Which is the other side. Don't lie about it if you're gonna do it.
Yeah, free consulting advice to people who have HubSpot too. An enriched person who hasn't opted into communication is not a marketing contact. Save yourself some money and follow the law. Enriched does not mean marketing can communicate. You're welcome.
Your sales contacts wisely.
1-to-1. Use that workaround. Okay, I'm going through past questions. Unless I see more streaming in, we may end this a little bit early and let people know where they can find the next recording in your outreach to them. So
Awesome.
anything you want to make sure we cover before we let people go, assuming we don't get more questions?
Well, we got one more question.
Yeah.
Feel free to email me, james@new.io. I'm always around. I'm always happy to chat. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can message me. I have open profile, which has bit me in the ass a couple times, but it's fine.
I sent my husband's in sales ops. I sent him your way, and you talked him out of needing a CPQ right now. And I always advise people to go to James because he's super honest about what does and doesn't work. So I'll let you tackle Vivian's question, and then we can round this out with a rant on CPQ in this world.
That's going to be good. We may go
Yeah.
over the hour, honestly.
Yeah. Just let him go.
All right. What is the best advice to track forecasts with all of these different types of revenue? Okay, so first, it's taking a step back and accurately setting up benchmark revenue models for each of these use cases. So if you're doing,
Assuming you have the data and you're not rolling it out for the first time.
you're correct.
Yeah.
What if you don't have the data? Go and do strategic wild ass guess, where you are going in and you're taking as much data as you can to establish a baseline of what you think this will be. Look at your traditional licensing costs, traditional PLG, all of those different things, and figure out, okay, if I convert X percent, here's my guess. Here's how many people we have on this plan. If I expose X more people based on existing models, I should have a 5% uptick in, like, do that from that side, from a forecast perspective.
Model. Do like a
Yeah.
moderate and then a conservative. And then when you start to note, like measure frequently after you roll it out too. And especially like at the 3-month mark, if you're way off, over communicate. Let everyone know.
Yeah. Here, if anybody wants to contact me after this, there you go. I'm happy to chat. That's my email. This is my phone. Let's talk about CPQ in this world. I have strong feelings on the subject of CPQ because I've been through a lot of terrible implementations of CPQ. I've been through some good implementations of CPQ. And I have actually built an implementation program here at New. So I am obviously very biased, but I think the world of CPQ has gotten a bad rap unnecessarily. Like, if the core technologies we used on a daily basis worked, we wouldn't be here. B2B SaaS would not exist. And the same is true for CPQ. CPQ for years has been this system where you buy a CPQ and then your admin team goes in and builds a whole lot of customizations on top of it and creates an unholy spider web of mess. And so then your reps have no idea what they're billing. They have no idea what they're charging. They have no idea which products are sold to which people. And it creates a lot of confusion for teams. That has been solved over the years by smart administrators, exactly. I love that. It's gonna go on my, it's gonna get that on my shirt. I've been thinking about what to put on the wall, and I'm just gonna put Rudberg, Goldberg, Hell. But what we've had smart architects, smart developers, smart admins who have come in and said, no, keep it simple. Build simply, build quietly, build easily. But at the same time, for years, CPQ has been thought of in a different breath from billing, which, let's be honest, in a world where you're selling something to someone and not accounting for how it's actually going to be billed out is insane. So if you're creating a quote, you're creating an order, and you're not thinking about the invoice that's going to go out, you're not on the same proration model as your billing system, you don't have a one-to-one pass through a sales order, like, what are you doing? All you're doing is creating work for your finance team. You're creating pain, the whole thing. So when I talk about CPQ, I very much put them into two categories, which are those that are ready for a new world where PLG, self-service, all of that exists, and ones that are absolutely not. And so anything that you walk into where you automatically have to start creating Apex or flows to make it work on a fundamental level, thinking Salesforce native is broken. Anything that can't deal with changes, recurring changes, update quantity, upsells, expansions, contractions, whatever, what are you going to do? You're a new business only company now. You can't actually make changes. It's the cancel and replace thing all over again. And then anything that's not connected to your billing system, you're going to have to refund up people a lot of money, or your finance team's going to want to kill you. One of the two. And so that's my hard take on CPQ systems. I am, again, very biased. New solves all of those problems, and I love it. This is the reason why I'm here. And so I hope my rant is okay, Camela.
I mean, my biggest frustration is they're all built for new acquisition and they rarely take into consideration expansion and upsell. And that part of the sales cycle and life cycle tracking and all of that, it's just, we as humans tend to be very short-sighted. We do have a good question about how do you think, mostly, let's see, keen to hear your thoughts on pricing models to adopt for including AI features like automated messages for CRM into subscription tiers. Mostly, I have seen companies bundling these in as pro tiers, but would like to know how you think about it with usage.
So every time you're using AI, you're incurring a cost. It's almost a hardware model where you have true cogs for every single action that someone's taking. You're selling a one-time product many times. And so with that, you are entering into the cost plus model. So for me, what I've traditionally done with most things is say, okay, if my cost is 5 cents, I should probably sell it for 30 cents. Thinking about a 6x retail on my costs. So working off a cost plus is where I would start. If you're small and growing into this, like if you don't know, because chances are right now you're not on the OpenAI enterprise tier, or you don't have a world-class MCP you're building into. So which, well, more of that later. But what you do have is you do have modeling to know what is this going to cost me when I reach X saturation. What is this going to cost me when I reach Y level? So look at your existing customer base. Think about how much they're going to adopt this, and then do your pricing at that level, because you're making an assumption. Again, it's a swag, but do your multiple, but think 6 to 8x whatever your costs are in that area, because you need to cover the personnel cost for selling the thing. That's 20 cent. That's 20 to 40 cents off the dollar. You're looking at covering operational costs. That's another 20 to 40 cents off the dollar. At which point you're at like a 5% margin. No, less than that. But you can think about it from that level. Honestly, I would take it back to a hard goods model, put it in that frame, think about your profit margins in the same way you would there, and then build your usage models around that, and then build it up correctly.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for looking at what has worked for others and what people complain about and why they complain about it, and then adapting to other people's mistakes.
Yeah. It's like how there are
Salesforce.
certain car makers out there that are losing $300,000 per $100,000 car sold. I'm not going to name names there, but they're an electric car manufacturer. But
Sure.
it's when you're looking at that, like, think about your actual costs and also what the market can bear, because don't charge $2 per interaction. That's insane. But be realistic and think about it from that model.
And there's a lot of chatter, especially on our Slack community, about the Salesforce agent pricing model that they recently changed for good reason. James, do you have anything else to add before we let folks go a couple minutes early?
No. I love you guys for sticking around. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sticking with us. I'm excited. Again, it's james@new.io. Super easy to get in touch with, super easy to talk to, maybe sometimes.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.